Biodiversity is a combination of two words, bio, which means life, and diversity, that means variety. In simple terms, biodiversity refers to the number and variety of organisms found within a specified geographical region. That specified geographical region, say, can be a desert, or it can be an evergreen forest, or a deciduous forest. Now, this biodiversity can include plants, animals, microorganisms, the genes they contain, and the ecosystem they form. Biodiversity is a system in constant evolution from the viewpoint of species as well as from the viewpoint of an individual organism. Now, when I say biodiversity is a system, the word system here refers to set of things that work together as parts of a mechanism. Similarly, when I say species, it refers to a group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding. The average half-life of a species is estimated at between 1 and 4 million years. And 99% of the species that have ever lived on the earth are today extinct. So when I say half-life of species here, it refers to the period in which the amount of substance inside the living organism is metabolized, that is, changed from food into energy, and eliminated half of its initial amount of normal biological processes. And that is the reason 99% of the species that have ever lived on the earth are today extinct. Biodiversity is not found evenly on the earth. The tropical areas are rich in biodiversity, but as we move towards polar regions, we will find larger populations of fewer and fewer species. So we can conclude that biodiversity is our living wealth. It is a result of hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary history. Now you must know that biodiversity is a result of weathering mantle. And if you see the diagram, you will come to know the biodiversity of any region depends on the weathering mantle. And the deposition of weathering mantle depends on where it is located on planet Earth. So if you see this diagram, you will know that equatorial region has more depth of weathering mantle. But as we move towards poles, it reduces. Same is the case with temperature. Temperature is higher at equatorial region, but as we move towards poles, it reduces. Third, it is the same with precipitation. When I say precipitation, it refers to downward movement of water in the form of rainfall, snowfall, hailstone, or sleet. But when I take tropical regions, the precipitation is mainly in the form of rainfall. So precipitation decreases as we move from equatorial region towards polar regions. Now, if you look at the diagram closely, you will understand that at the bottom we have fresh rocks, and above that we have zone of little chemical alterations. Then it is a third zone, which is zone of moderate to good chemical alterations. Fourth zone, which is clay mineral zone. Fifth one is a zone of dominance of oxides and aluminium. And the sixth one is a soil with oxides of iron and aluminium. So all this tells us that the biodiversity is richer near the equatorial region, but as we move towards the pole, it reduces. Now there are three levels of biodiversity, and they are genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. When I say genetic diversity is the biological variation that occurs within species. The genetic diversity makes it possible for species to adapt when the environment changes. So, large genetic diversity is a big gene pool, and it positively affects ecosystem resilience and function. When I say resilience, here it refers to the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness, or it is the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape. So, larger the genetic diversity, the resilience will be better. When we drain species of their genetic diversity, what happens is we destroy their adaptive potential and their long term survival will be jeopardized. So we can conclude genetic diversity as genes are the basic building blocks of various life forms. Genetic biodiversity refers to variation of genes within the species. Now, due to genetic diversity, the varieties that are susceptible die and the ones who can adapt to changes will survive. Genetic diversity is important. Why? For a healthy population, by maintaining different varieties of genes that might be resistant to pests, diseases, or other conditions. Then it is species diversity. Now, what are species? Groups of individual organisms having certain similarities in their physical characteristics is what is called species. Say, for example, human beings. Now, human beings genetically belong to the Homo sapiens group and also differ in their characteristics such as height, color, physical appearance, etc. This is due to genetic diversity. Now, this genetic diversity is essential for healthy breeding of population of species. So, what is species diversity? Species diversity refers to variety of species. It relates to the number of species in a defined area. The diversity of species can be measured through its richness, abundance, and types. Some areas are more rich in species than other areas. So, areas rich in species diversity are called hotspots of diversity. Similarly, we have the third, that is ecosystem diversity. Now, from equator towards poles, we have seen the difference in the diversity of habitats. So, there is a broad difference between ecosystem types and ecological processes occurring within each ecosystem type, and that constitutes the ecosystem diversity. Now, the boundaries of communities, that is, association of species and ecosystem, are not very rigidly defined. So, the demarcation of ecosystem boundaries is difficult, at the same time, it is complex.